Hey, Dima. How are you
Hello.
doing? It's so good to see you again for another Wednesday
Great
evening.
to see you. You're looking different today.
A little bit. As we discussed backstage, I found something. It was late last night, actually, when I found it. I hadn't seen it in years. Do you want to know what it is?
I think you have to tell us now. Yeah.
Nah, we'll wait. It's good.
Okay.
No, but I found my neck. I found my neck. I hadn't seen it in forever. And I decided to trim along the jawline. I heard someone say that I should do that. I read articles.
Yeah.
That's what I'm supposed to do. And I did it. And look, so far I have no choice of reverting back, but I'll deal with it for now. But thank you for noticing. I don't think you had a choice. It's kind of like 3 inches of a neck that wasn't there in last week's show.
For the last 2 years. Yeah.
For like 2.5, 3 years. You're right. Dima, so what's changed with you? Has anything changed with you recently?
No, I did not shave my neck. But yeah, everything is great. And I am excited for our show today.
Yes.
We have one of my favorite people in the world. I say I feel a lot because I love our guest for today. Let's bring Jessica.
Come on, Jessica. All right.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
Shaven, sir.
Yikes.
You are shaven,
Look,
sir?
it makes more expressions.
I like it.
That's going to be a
What are you doing, Jessica?
Yeah.
I am currently, so I guess just a little bit about me. I work at the LSU Foundation. My tagline is usually, I don't have to ask anyone for money. I get to help other people ask our donors for money. And so I work in portfolio management with an awesome team. And in the time that I'm not spending doing data and spreadsheets, I dive as heavily as possible into the other side of my brain, doing everything from drawing and calligraphy, which is one of the ways that Dima and I first became such great friends, and balancing that out with community volunteering, particularly with the Junior League and with the Delta Gamma chapter of LSU. My passion is very much around empowering women and developing future leaders in that area. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, it's no wonder that you and Dima cross paths. I have a question for you. Will you be doodling during the show tonight?
Oh man, this is like my notepad is like my arm. I want to say this is maybe volume number 15, but I've used the same journal since 2004. Absolutely no order to it. Everything from my annual plan to my grocery list to the things I took notes for in a meeting today. The only logic is chronology. And I think I'm on, like I said, number 15 or so of these. And there are lots of doodles in them.
Wow.
How many doodles today? I'll share them. But yeah, that's actually how Dima and I met when she came to speak about breaking bases and shattering limitations at the LSU Foundation. I was doodling in my notebook because it helps me pay attention while I'm taking notes. And so Dima, shortly after, I think you came up to me and I had drawn something out in a ribbon with breaking bases, and Dima was like, "Oh, Jessica, do you do this? Like, is this something that you do professionally?" And I was like, I was feeling so empowered after her speech. Yes, I do. Went home that night and I told my husband, I was like, shit, I just made up a profession and I don't actually do this. I was like, my experience is doing party cups in college, and I'm pretty sure that I cannot put up a web portfolio of that. And my ever supporting husband was like, Jessica, you have done like calligraphy for people's wedding invite. You just don't think that this is something that you do. So I very quickly made a web portfolio and backdated 90% of it so that I could send a link to Dima, and thus our creative relationship began. Just me saying yes.
Yeah, and that's powerful. That is so powerful to say yes and then figure it out.
That is, I should probably do less of that, but I do tend to say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah. So Jessica told me that day, she said, yeah, I'm updating my website. Give me a few days. I didn't realize she was going to create a website.
I was making a website.
She contacted her friends and she said, do you remember this thing I created for you a while back? Can you send it to me? So she could put it all together. So for anyone who saw the She Shattered posters, so Jessica is the one who designed the 12 of them. And then Jessica is the one who designed Breaking Vases and a lot of the social media posts and a lot of the marketing stuff. It's right here. Here's the creative.
Writing in Arabic was so fun, and I will never forget.
That's awesome.
Dima, probably an hour in the bookstore, just going through and looking at different covers. And I went back and I was so excited. I was like, I'm ready to write knowledge is light in Arabic. And I wrote it and I brought it to you and you said, Jessica, this is beautiful, but it doesn't say anything. Okay. Cool. Like, I learned very quickly how hard it is to write something that is flourished in a language that you do not read or speak.
Yeah. Yeah. But she did it. She did it. And now she knows how to do Arabic calligraphy. So she doesn't speak Arabic. Wow. She doesn't write Arabic. And she designed a whole book cover in Arabic. So I love it. Yeah.
And thus was the start of our creative journey.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So Jessica is, I always say it, and I'm going to say it multiple times, and I may have said it already. She is such a hidden gem. I love Jessica. She does a lot of work in the community. She's the person who doesn't brag about it. She's not a person who's trying to tell everybody all the great work that she's doing. While she's empowering others, she's helping women, she's coaching and mentoring young LSU students, being in leadership role at the junior league. It's just so impressive. So Jessica, so let's talk about volunteer leadership. What does volunteer engagement look like? What does it mean to you, and how does it look like?
Well, I guess I sort of started by saying this, but I think for me, volunteer leadership starts with saying yes. It's saying yes to something that maybe challenges you, maybe is something that's a little bit scary or out of your comfort zone. That's the front end. And one of the most fulfilling things to me about volunteer leadership is not in conflict with professional leadership, but getting to see when you reach a certain level of volunteer leadership, all of your wins are someone else's. So in a career, you're always trying to make sure, like, okay, I want my team to win, but I've also got to have something on my resume. I'm working toward this professional certification, so I need to be the one that presents at this conference. One of my favorite things about volunteer leadership is you get to see your wins and your successes through others. And I think that's what's so awesome. One of my favorite quotes, and I have it in a poster downstairs, is that a rising tide lifts all ships. And that is so, it's true in so many parts of life, but in volunteer engagement and volunteer leadership, when the organization wins, I win. When I'm in the junior league and other members get to win in a project. Dima mentioned I'm an advisor for Delta Gamma. When I get to see a collegian who was terrified of speaking in public after a semester of giving presentations, able to do it without breaking a sweat. Like, that's a win for me, even if it's maybe not a personal goal. And that's something that I think volunteer leadership has to offer in a very real way.
Why is that a win for you? Right? Why is it a win for you and not the person who's doing it?
Yeah. So, I mean, one, I think, like, maybe selfishly, that's what drives my ego a little bit, is I like knowing that I played a role in someone else being better or finding the best version of themselves. But ultimately, it's a win for everyone, because if I believe in the mission of the organization that I'm working with, I know that that mission is better when everybody within it is better. And so the Junior League is a great example of this. Working in a committee, if everybody on my team is able to do something great, And that means collectively our mission is better, our committee is better, our organization is better. And so I don't know. Maybe I'm not answering that, but I feel like that's a win for me because what I got to accomplish is still through someone else.
Well, and I guess another part of that, like playing devil's advocate. I mean, what good is lifting all ships if you're the only one doing the rowing? So, what are you getting out of it if it's really other people to benefit?
Yeah,
the tangible thing, not like
I'm gonna stick with the analogy there and say, while this is sometimes an unpopular part of leadership, I'd rather sit in the boat until everybody wants to row rather than row the boat entirely myself. Now, sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes somebody needs to move it forward. But I've had people that have pushed me to say, like, no, we're not moving forward until we all move forward together. And it's easier, at least for me, to find opportunities to do that when I'm volunteering, because sometimes the stakes are lower. So like if at work, my wonderful friend and boss, Adrian Owen, tells me we need this deadline done by Friday. And I'm like, great, I'm going to motivate my team to do it. And it's Thursday night and no one has done it. I'm not going to go back to Adrian and be like, you know what, my motivation didn't really work this week. And we're just going to not have this done. I'm going to be up at 2:00 in the morning getting it done. By the way, that never happens. My team is awesome. With volunteer leadership, we can say, is the reason that we didn't hit this deadline because it was unreasonable? Are the members not engaged? Maybe we need to push this back, because if this is a volunteer obligation, how do we find opportunities for everybody to grow and volunteer and be engaged? Sometimes volunteer management is a safer place to fail than work. And that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's more of a tolerance there, right? Because people, I guess, need it more and you're not being paid for it. So I guess there's more tolerance for what people will accept in terms of effort or work, right?
Exactly. And at least in my experience, again, with Delta Gamma and with the Junior League, people who want to grow themselves tend to sign up to do volunteer positions that challenge them. So an example I was involved in marketing and communications with the Junior League, and I had someone who was on my committee that signed up to be the editor of our magazine. And I asked her, I was like, why'd you sign up to do this? And she's like, I'm a lawyer and I write a lot, so I feel like I could be the editor of a magazine. I was like, okay. But she did that because she was like, if I signed up for something that was outside of my depth and outside of my skill set at work, I'd be anxious about it. I'd probably get it done. I'd learn how to do it. But in a volunteer environment, I know that I get to ask more questions. I know that I get more grace extended to me. And so being able to grow your skill set it's a little bit safer. And I think it's a place where there's, in many cases, more opportunity to develop leadership skills because it's safe to exhale. It's safe to take a breath and figure it out.
Great point.
Wow, love it. So Jessica, with everything that we're living through and the anxiety and uncertainty and all of this, how do you keep your passion up? Like, how do you keep your energy and your passion during this time?
So this is a pro and a con. I always reference this. When I was little, my mom used to say that I never once ran 100-degree fever. I either had like a 99.1-degree fever and was deathly ill, or I had 104-degree fever. And I'm sure that there is something that a very well-paid psychologist could unpack. But for me, I'm either face planting on my couch with 10% energy, or I'm like 1,000% and I'm ready to do it. And so keeping my passion is, it means that I have to know when my cup is getting low and I can only pour from a full cup. And I go back to that phrase a lot because, either that, or I love you got to put the mask on yourself before you can put it on someone else. And so I think for me, keeping my passion means knowing when I'm starting to feel empty and finding something tactically to energize it.
Wow. Do you have triggers set for that?
Say that again.
Do you have triggers set for that? Because a lot of times we don't know when our bucket's completely empty until it's
Well,
Absolutely
having
dry.
been married for 10 years, that means I have a wonderful mirror that tells me when I'm cranky and need to refill my cup, which is my loving husband, Anthony. I think some of it is I have a little bit of an internal policy, I guess, that when I hit a certain threshold of working on something for a certain amount of time and I haven't solved a problem, making myself step away from it. It's really hard. I am that person that like could disappear into a rabbit hole and emerge 3 days later, not having seen other humans or light. And so really my trigger for me is like, when have I been doing something longer than I think it needs to take? And I make myself go do something else until I can come back and be re-energized.
Wow.
And that's been harder, honestly, for me during the pandemic and being home. It's so easy to not change anything about what you're doing. 7 days. I could sit right in this chair, talk to people on the computer. You can't see all the food and coffee mugs that are delightfully. I mean, I could eat, drink, live, have social hours, do everything right here. And it's something as simple as like, no, I'm going to pick my computer up and go outside. Go do some doodling here and step away. But those are typically when I know it's that time threshold that's the trigger for me.
You know, Jessica, that as you were talking, I kept thinking how most of people, are either right brain or left brain. And you're the only one I know who's both. So you're amazingly creative. Like, oh my goodness, you're just so creative. And at the same time, you're so analytical. So do you think that helps you too, as you're talking about filling your cup, where you're shifting between the tasks to give yourself a break, to energize yourself?
I think that because I need to fill 2 cups, that makes me more self-aware. So I know I've been in spreadsheets for a week. I'm going to go do some drawing on my iPad, or I'm going to go read a book. Again, it's more like that time limited trigger. If I've been on the computer all day, I'm going to sit down and do something that just feels as far on the opposite side of it, and see how that starts to pour water back into my cup.
Did you ever find that sometimes the time trigger though isn't enough? Because sometimes, like you said, if you're passionate about it and you're in it, you're plugged in. The time trigger can be the first trigger, the first mechanism to go off and give you a red flag. But do you ever notice that sometimes you could be doing that plus 3 other things and be drained, not just from having devoted yourself to this spreadsheet for 7 hours, but physically, emotionally, because maybe you help someone over the phone or with their, personal drama or dilemma that day,
Right.
Do you ever find like sometimes that time trigger isn't enough? Maybe there's other things that need to be.
Absolutely. One of my coworkers pinged me today, and we were getting to have this really robust dialogue over Microsoft Teams. And she was like, gosh, what did we do before Teams? The whole time I was chatting with her, I was in a one-on-one with somebody on my team, and I had my Gmail open because I was waiting for something else. And I literally responded, single task. That's what we used to do before in Microsoft Teams. And so a place that I've pushed myself is that if I don't think an external trigger is going to get me, I block time on my calendar. So I make sure that I've got something, even if it's intangible, that I know tells me to pull away and do something. And I had a boss, and God, it annoyed me to be told this early in my career, that was like, schedule a one-on-one with yourself every week. Schedule a 30-minute one-on-one with yourself. And I can't even say it without eye rolling, because at that point in my early to mid 20s, I was like,
what does that mean? The value of that then means
foolishness. Me, myself, and I do not need a meeting once a week. Fast forward a decade, and now I'm like, yeah, if I don't schedule intentional reset time, then it doesn't matter what I'm working on. I'm not going to be able to do it efficiently. And that's been a savior for me to have those, like, feel like it's okay to set boundaries. Maybe that's something I learned later than others, or just in time. But setting those boundaries around so that I don't get burnt out and I can stay passionate about the things I'm working on when I'm working on them.
Wow. Love it. So setting boundaries, that is a big, big topic. So how, like when you're thinking about it, being busy and setting boundaries, you and I we were discussing it earlier, and it applies a lot in what you're saying right now. So what do you think about that? Being busy and or setting boundaries?
So this has been a big revelation for me as we've been in a work from home environment. So I haven't been fully in my office since middle of March. My volunteer commitments haven't really increased or decreased, but they've changed the nature of doing things virtually. And what I found was that it's so easy to just be doing for an accessible 24 hours a day. So I've got colleagues that are working every day from 6 p.m. to midnight because they have family commitments during the day. And so after a couple months, it started to creep in where I was like, oh, wait, if I'm on my computer watching Netflix at 7 o'clock at night, my little Teams dot is green. How do I say no when someone asks me a question? And so what I've really found for me that works is establishing times of day or days of the week. And it's not the same from week to week. Understanding that like in this season of where I am, this is a place where I need to set some boundaries for myself and releasing guilt for having those. So like last week, I spent a half day and I went and got a massage. I met a friend for a pedicure and I did it absolutely guilt-free because I had communicated to other people that might need me at that time that I was not going to answer my text messages and I was not going to answer my email. And that's how it was going to be for the evening. My husband and I went and had a date night. I didn't even take my phone with me because I had communicated that this was a boundary I needed to set for myself. It's not that I'm too busy to respond to you. It's not that what you're asking potentially from me is extremely important. And it's going to be my first priority as soon as I come out of this personal time block.
I love how you worded that because a lot of us don't have those tools. A lot of, just how to say that, or even to copy exactly what you said, copy paste exactly what you said, in insert in your conversation. Just what you said there is enough of a tool on your tool belt to be given enough grace, because what you're doing is you're saying no, but you're saying no nicely. And you're setting up a buffer between what's acceptable and what's not. While that's different for everyone from where they come from based on their circumstances and whatever, or expectations, resources, whatever. I feel that's extremely important just to have those words, Jessica. Those
and it
words
wasn't
alone
easy.
can help.
So I have a question, and this was the first time I think I reflected.
Oh no, I'm sorry, you didn't get. We don't do questions.
There are more questions.
So have either of you ever set an out of office reply on your personal email account?
Yeah.
No, only work. And I get it.
I have never gotten like eye roll negative comments the first time I did that.
You did? You got negative comments?
I did. And thankfully it was not necessarily from my friends, but the idea that I would have said I'm out of office for some of my volunteer commitments, or even just from responding to things. So it was one year during recruitment for Delta Gamma, which is a very busy time. And I knew that I was going to be having non-traditional hours. And so I put that, like the message you use when you're at a conference where you're like, I won't be available as frequently. I'll get back to my earliest convenience. And I had it up for a week and people freaked out. I had a few folks that were like, well, but I need you to do this. And I was like, well, but you just got a message from me telling you that I can do it. It's just not going to literally be right now. And I think like I needed to learn through the discomfort of that, to know that it was okay to do and that it was the right thing to do. Because had I tried to go home every night and be like, I got to clear my inbox, let me get through everything, let me respond to everything, I took that pressure off myself to be mediocre everywhere and instead said, like, let me focus on something that is really important to me and really that I'm really passionate about, which is giving these collegiate women the experience and my attention and being there for them during an intense period of time where they need me, but also making sure that no one else feels like I just ghosted them.
Wow. Wow.
Do you feel like there's different expectations for Teams, for email, for a phone call that got missed, for a text message, for a smoke signal?
So I will use this platform to personally apologize to all of my close and personal friends, especially on very hysterical, puppy-filled group text messages that sometimes have to deal with me responding to 75 text messages all back to back at 5 o'clock at night. I want to be a text person. And if anyone wants to invent the ability to mark a text messages unread, I will invest every penny I have in that development. Mark text as unread, I'm convinced that I could keep up with them better. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I think I would say right now my focus is really on Teams and email because I'm so computer based. I have to remember to check things on my phone a lot more. So I work at the LSU Foundation now. Prior to being at the foundation, I worked in marketing and communications for 12 years. And about a year and a half ago, it was the first time in a decade that I was not the primary manager on a Facebook group, like on a business. And so I wrote in my 2019 personal goals, I was ready to do like a 19 for 19. And one of those was to take a social media detox, turn it off. I don't want to read comments. I don't want anybody to send me Facebook messages. And so I eliminated that platform for a good while from a way that people could contact me. And it was really hard to turn it back on because it was so nice to not have one more somebody can ping you and that you have to keep up with.
Yeah, because once you open that channel, right, now you got to maintain it.
Yes.
Yeah. But think about all the junk we get from it every single day. In my situation, I'm upset with Facebook and how they're handling the political situation. So I just post related to my business and sometimes once in a while about friends or some random things. But I realize now because I'm using it less, it's healthier. Like I can't imagine how much junk I was getting out of it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I went through. Oh, go ahead, Jessica. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, there are only so many hours in the day that I can communicate or work with someone. And so every little bit seems to help if I can narrow the many, everything from carrier pigeons to Facebook messages that someone could get in touch. It means that I'm more likely to respond. I'm able to give you my best and full attention versus starting every email with, I'm so sorry I missed this, or, oh, I'm so sorry it's taking me so long to get back to you. I don't like that. I don't want to be that person. And so the ways that someone can reach out to me has been the start of a journey.
You're speaking the truth. I went through, it was not fun, but I went through Facebook and what I realized, turning off notifications helps immensely. Because if it's not, dinging or coming across the screen and I have to go to it to get the update, I notice I definitely don't use it nearly as much. And then so I got to that point with, trying to control screen time before COVID, trying to control screen time for my kids. And so then I started using the screen time app and noticing how much time I spent on Facebook.
Fascinating data. Yeah, the data nerd in me loves that.
That's it. And it helped me make a more informed decision, and one that I've really, appreciated. I've gotten back all those dings and dahs and banner messages, and I've enjoyed turning that off. But I went through Facebook and deleted notifications from stuff I had from when I started Facebook.
It's
Wow.
crazy.
You know, like I was one of those people that joined in like May of 2005 when it was still the Facebook.
Wow.
I have to go back and look at that.
I had interests and stuff, and think about all this data. Years
Yeah.
it's been out there. I had all this data, and so any interest, any notification, subscription, update, like it was insane. I went 3 hours. I cleaned it all out. Life is much better. But
So
I'm not going to get to that point.
has consolidating your digital communication channels let you be a better digital communicator, or has it let you incorporate more? It's hard to say in real life communication right now because we're getting so little of it. But do you feel like you're getting more personal interactive time, or you're just like, great, everybody that used to reach out to me on Facebook is now reaching out to me by email?
It's a good question. Dima, go with that one.
So I get two kinds of communications. I'm hearing an echo.
Let's try it again.
Okay, so I usually get two kinds of communications. One of them is from my friends or my mom sending me a message. So these are okay. Even if I don't respond to them, it's okay because they're gonna text me. They're gonna reach out to me in a different way. My other kind of communication is, which I love, is the people that I don't know that watch my talks or somehow read my book, and they're sending me messages on Facebook or LinkedIn. So with those, I try to be so careful not to like ignore, because they're important to me. I want to be able to connect with these people. So that is part of the reason I keep checking. And I have multiple Facebook pages. I have the personal one, but I also have the one for business. I have one for breaking bases. So even though I try to detox from it, I know it is part of my purpose to stay connected and checking. So if somebody sends me a message, I am responding and I'm being there and being, accessible and kind instead of just ignoring them for a month.
I think that's really important.
I like that, and I totally. I want to go back to something I do at the company at IT Inspired, because I feel you, Dima, managing all those different accounts. Being a business owner, you feel like you want to detach, but there's a part of you that just like it's just keeps sucking you back in. That's a way we create content. That's a way that we stay connected, and it's a brutal, vicious cycle. We have something we call a communication preference, basically for everyone at IT Inspired, and so everyone fills this out, and we need to update it because these things change. But it's basically a communication preferences list, and people use it different ways. We have everyone's picture in a circle, and next to that, it's an icon of your preferred communication methods. So one might be a picture of my beautiful face with a new neck, 3 inches in neck now. And then it's got email first, right? It's got a Gmail logo at the top. And then it's got, a Slack for number 2. And at the bottom, I actually use it for don't communicate. I put a text message, SMS, looking icon with a big red X on it saying, do not text me. And for me, that's because that gets lost for me. I don't organize that communication well. If I get a whole bunch of text back to back to back, like you said earlier, 75 replying at once, I'm going to lose it. My primary mode of communication is email. So I try to, advertise that for everyone so they know how best to reach me or how. Well,
you're communicating your boundaries on that. So if you message, I'm not too busy for you. This is not the best way for us to be able to have a conversation. How does that work when you have incompatible communication preferences with someone you have to communicate with often?
Well, I think that's on you. Most people, at least. Oops, I'm getting the feedback again. Most people, at least, to adapt. I would think, if you're trying to communicate to someone, the onus should be on you to adapt your message to the audience as best as possible. But you don't always know how it's being received. So I don't know. There's some things there where there's some obvious gaps. But in this case, we're trying to communicate, and others, what's your preference? Because it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just that it's different. And if that makes it better for you, if we can just follow that, or at least use this cheat sheet once in a while and refer to that, we're less likely to let things drop or create anxiety for someone because, I got that text message, but I haven't responded in 3 hours, but you needed something in 30 minutes. And it's,
yeah, no, that's so true.
This is so linked to generations too. So whenever I'm teaching about how to work across generations, it's a big deal. And one of the big important, like a very important word that Jessica mentioned is adapting. Because when you're thinking about individuals that are more senior, baby boomers, they want face-to-face, they want the communication, they want all of this. Gen X, we like more email. So I know you're on the border, Rob. Millennial, more text. But the challenge is many times they feel there's a tension and there's miscommunication because of these different tools. And the only way to solve that is to adapt and understand, just like what you said, Rob, what is your communication preference and how can we ensure we're reaching out to you, but also you're setting boundaries. And this by itself would solve so many issues related to working across generations.
Well, and if I can plug for a minute, I don't think that I learned how to set some of those boundaries necessarily in a professional environment, because in a professional environment, there are already some boundaries. You've been given an email account for work. There's probably an expectation that you're going to use email. You got a desk line. Maybe or maybe you don't have your cell phone plan paid for. There's also, for most companies, at least a little bit of a majority norm around the days of the week you'll work and the hours you work. All of that's been blown up, but for the most part, most people have those. Working within a volunteer environment, one of my first leadership in the junior league, and manage isn't really the right word, but I had someone who technically reported to me on the hierarchy. And after 2 weeks, I realized we were having a lot of tension around communications, and we went to lunch and she shared with me, she works out in the morning. She loves to go into the office before anything else happens. So she was getting up at 3 a.m. She was at her desk by 5. She was in bed by 6 o'clock. I don't know what 3 a.m. looks like unless I'm catching a flight. Being honest, I don't really know what 7 a.m. looks like most days. And so what she and I realized is, it didn't matter which communication choice we made. We were passing ships in the night. And so what we had to figure out for me was that, okay, if I've got emails from 10 different people when I wake up in the morning, hers are the ones that I'm going to work on first, because I know we have a limited window of overlapping time together. It's not that she's more important than anybody else in my inbox, but in order for she and I not to get on a 72-hour delay, I told her, I was like, no, I'm not going to have 5 a.m. coffee meetings with you. And she, 6 p.m.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
That was the first, and this is someone who I really we were both volunteers. Neither one of us had to sit down and make these concessions with each other. We weren't getting paid to do it. We weren't getting paid to figure it out, but we both wanted the same thing. And that brought us to creative consensus in a way that I don't think I had experienced in the professional workplace prior.
That's interesting that we don't develop that a lot sooner before folks enter the workforce.
Yeah.
That should be I know it's sort of like taking a health class in high school. It seems so stupid and dumb and trivial and elementary. I get it, but it'd be interesting to maybe develop some better education around that, right. Better training around it. But sometimes you have to get in the mix where you were asked to do those things and it's painful and you have to work your way out to know that you never want to be in that fire again.
Yeah, so if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And that is a huge part of volunteer leadership, is putting yourself in a position to be challenged. And look, challenge is different for everybody. Sometimes it means saying you're going to be the editor of a newsletter when you write legal briefings. Sometimes it means agreeing to answering emails at 9 a.m. when normally my Gmail time is 6 p.m. But being adaptable and knowing that, if we're going to work through this, there's going to be some compromise, and we don't have the rigid structure of a professional environment to find that middle ground for us. We've got to find it for ourselves.
Good point. Amazing point.
Wow.
You know, I want to go back to something, and I want Dima to chime in, but
Rob,
you mentioned how y'all were
Rob, you
two
haven't.
ships passing.
Yeah.
You mentioned how you were two ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of talk about something that Tommy Talley dropped today on the Rotary virtual meeting, and that live stream, which was amazing because he was talking about how he breaks down communication, and he was a past guest. So, and I'm wearing his work right now.
I love it.
He mentioned how he tries to tell a story and break down the communication to its least common denominator, basically the most basic elements. And he mentioned how in Morse code, it's like the dit and the da. Those two elements are necessary. And what that brought me to was when you're saying basically, you know, one generation, another generation, night owl, you know, early worm, or early bird. It's interesting how you still have to find a way to fill that gap, even though the puzzle pieces don't fit. So like we mentioned about grace, like we mentioned about sort of being flexible. Can you kind of tell us maybe how you developed that, or where you learned that was an important skill or value? Because obviously that goes beyond just work. Did that come from a personal
I think it comes from necessity. You know, so in that instance, I was motivated to get something done. I knew that this member was going to need to be a partner to me on it. And I forget, maybe there's 5 conflict resolution styles.
Yeah.
There's one. So the compromise is everybody wins, right? And then there's one, I always forget what it is, but it's the situation wins, the organization wins. And it might mean that I 40% lose and someone else 60% wins. But at the end of the day, we've got 100% solution for the thing that we agree upon. And at work, you could encounter somebody who the only thing you agree upon is that you both get paid at the end of the week. With a volunteer organization, if I don't agree with the mission and the path that we're moving forward, I get to walk away and leave. So the people who are left with me to do the work and to figure out the compromise, I already know that we have a common ground, and that's something that we can build on.
Love it.
I think it makes it such a special place to learn and to challenge yourself, because you've already got some place of common ground. It's like, okay, we both know that this project is important. The only obstacle we have is time. We can figure that out.
But can you imagine if we take this mindset into work?
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about having a similar vision or passion. So can you imagine taking that and putting it into work, and how the whole team dynamic is going to change by having that mindset instead of just worrying about the paycheck? Wow.
And I think that's where you learn the skills, and this is true for anything in life, right? You learn skills first. You get just enough of a mastery of them that you feel like you can take it and apply it somewhere else in life. So in the last 5 months, while I've had colleagues that are working all different hours, this is a situation I've encountered before. I know if the project we're working on is enough, this is a roadblock that I've cleared for myself previously. I did it in a safe space where there was a better likelihood of being a favorable outcome. So now when I'm at work and potentially this is something that could be a little bit more challenging, I already know that I've got some experience to be able to come at this and try to find something either more effectively or expediently that work.
So good.
I think that's incredible too. And the first time I saw it, and you've said volunteer leadership numerous times tonight, and we need to bring that up again, because I would like maybe you to define why that's different than just normal leadership, because I maybe got a hint of that when I started volunteering with the Red Cross, because someone there basically said, the volunteers do come and go a lot. There's a lot of turnover, and it's a whole lot harder to get someone to do something when they're not being paid to listen to you.
Yeah. And look, that's the big difference is if I'm leading someone in a volunteer capacity versus managing someone, the difference is I can't fire you. And that's the negative side of the dynamic, right? But when you look at it in the reverse, what it means is that for us to reach a common goal, I've got to motivate you to be there, or the organization's got to motivate you to be there, because you don't have some of those built-in carrots, like a paycheck, like adding something to your resume. I mean, not that you can't add volunteer experience to your resume, but building a portfolio. Some of the things that we're taught so early on are what we should pursue as leadership tallies on our list. It's a different choice to make, to do it in your free time, to do it for something that you believe in, to do it alongside people who have similar values. And oftentimes to do it, I mentioned this earlier, but like for me, what I find rewarding is when I can make a choice and I get to see someone else have that aha moment. I get to see them have that win. And look, the LSU Foundation is one of the most incredible cultures that I've ever worked for, and there are ample opportunities for me to find that. And when you find it, you want to keep chasing it. And being in a volunteer leadership position has been a place for me to find that over and over again. And it never gets old, because with volunteers, you mentioned this, there's high turnover. So you may have, so for the junior league, we have 1 year placements. That means I've got 1 year to learn someone's style, to figure out what we're going to accomplish together, to get it done, and then to teach it to someone else. It's high stakes, and it's also low risk at the same time, because if it doesn't work after a year, somebody else is going to come along and figure out how to maybe make it work great. They're going to build off of what I did. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I answered that, but
no, you totally did.
Beyond answered that. So love it. So Jessica, I know now with the new class of I always struggle with Delta Gamma.
Yeah,
With the Greek words. So Rob and our theme right now is resilience, and focusing
oh wow, yeah,
all the changes that have been going on, and we've been asking all of our guests to talk about resilience. And I remember when you and I visited recently, you were talking about this new class that are coming in, and you're asking them about the pandemic and how it's impacting them. And it was fascinating, the responses that you received from them, and how that gave you a sense of their personality and their style. So tell us more about it.
So every year it is a humbling reminder to me how much older I am than incoming college freshmen. Why I choose to remind myself of that every year, I need to just put a post to stay motivated. But so something that was so unique this year is for the LSU community and for many other schools across the country. So we have upwards of 1,400, it was almost close to 1,500 incoming freshmen and current LSU students that go through the sorority recruitment process, the Panhellenic process. And a few weeks before it started, we've been having ongoing conversations, but I had the opportunity to sit down with a group of 5 members of the chapter and say, you guys are going to be meeting and making decisions and talking to girls via only Zoom a week. And they were like, oh, Zoom. Yes, I did that in some classes last year. And admittedly, like, they were terrified because how do you make a decision about if you want to become a member of an organization for life in a 5-minute Zoom call when you're 18 and maybe you've never made a personal decision for yourself like this before? And so coaching and talking through what does it mean to try to think about what you've learned in the last year, I guess, 5 months, and apply it to making a decision about a membership in an organization. It was interesting. And so, like, for example, some of the girls coming through, one of the questions that we had a chance to ask them was, how have you grown in the last 5 months? Again, the data scientist in me gets really excited when I get to see information like this, but to hear 18-year-olds say like, it was such a bum that I missed my prom. Totally valid. And then to have other 18-year-olds say, I never realized how much bigger the world was than just me. And even while I've been confined physically, my world has gotten so much bigger in reality. And what does that mean for this, I don't know if it's next generation, but for our future leaders? So that was exciting for me to get to walk alongside and to say, how do you assuage fears? How do you inspire confidence? How do you say, we don't know what's on the other side of this, but there's something there. And if you want to be part of it, there's a place for you. But that's engaging with an 18 to 21-year-old audience who's trying to figure out what the first big decision in their life is going to be like was really humbling in the last 5 months while they feel like their whole norm has been ripped out from underneath them.
But it tells you a lot about their personality too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, coming back to what you said about resilience, so one of the girls I had an opportunity to really work closely with. So the way we're set up, there's some individual mentorship and then group mentorship. And she was in a position where truly for 3 months, everything about her volunteer role within the chapter changed. So it was like, okay, this week we're going to do part Zoom and part in person. Just kidding. Now I need you to learn how to do Google Meet. Just kidding. Now you're going to do everything on Zoom. Oh, that's right. You're a student. Well, you need to figure out where your classes fall and how you're going to do this separately. That I don't know that I could have handled that level of resilience at last week's age. Certainly not at 18, at 21. And I hope that this generation is going to be more resilient future leaders. They're going to be less scared of the unknown because they just had to jump in and do it. Certainly that's what I got to see in a way that I don't want to call it a silver lining, but it was something that was like exciting for me to see how adaptable and how flexible and how resilient and willing to overcome challenges when they believe in what they're doing this generation is.
Love it. Jess, can I kind of flip the script a little bit and go lightning round with you for a minute?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Favorite quote?
Favorite quote. I said it earlier, but that a rising tide lifts all boats.
You did, yeah.
But something I've been meditating on a lot lately is a quote from Their Eyes Were Watching God that says, there are years that ask questions and there are years that answer them.
I like that.
Sometimes we don't know which one of those years that we're in, but we're in moments of life where we're constantly being asked questions. We're in this introspective place, but then you come into a moment of light and it's a year that's answering those questions for you.
What year is it in 2020?
This is a year of answers for me.
Nice.
I feel like I've reached a new level of forced self-awareness. And it's not that I have all the answers, but that's been something that's exciting for me to think about is what's the difference between years that ask questions and years that answer them.
And last book you read?
Ooh, I'm a terrible. Can I flip to a podcast?
Yeah.
I am. I love reading books, but I struggle to like sit down and finish a book. I do, however, always listen to the Stuff You Should Know podcasts. I need something in like small bites. I love anything that's fast facts. And so I would say that's like one of my reading things.
Did you take Emergenetics?
I did.
What are you?
So I have taken, is it DC or is it INTJ?
Oh, that's the, yeah.
Okay.
That's the disc, right?
Which one is Emergenetics Colors?
Yes.
So the 4 colors, the yellow,
So
visionary.
I know I am almost no red. If I could go as long as humanly possible without interacting with other people, that would be
What?
great. Yes, no, I'm low red. I think I'm high yellow and blue.
Yeah, visionary and
Evenly split with
yellow
those
and
in green, yellow, and blue.
So
It's interesting. I've taken emergenetics, PDP, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs multiple times, and I've never had my response change on any test. Enneagram 5. I'm an INTJ. My strengths finders are all like analytical. We dressed up as a team 2 Halloweens ago as strengths finders Care Bears.
Come on, Adrian.
Yes. Oh no, I'll send you the picture. It's awesome. Hers was.
I know what Adrian was doing.
Adrian was futuristic Care Bear, and I was prove it Care Bear. Part of that analytical strength is that I'm not always.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I want to know, like prove it to me. Help me be a champion for this idea, but show me why it's the idea. Show me why this is a thing that I should be 110% on board with you for.
Okay. 2 more questions.
Okay.
Give gratitude to someone right now on the live stream. Not even a question, so it didn't count, but do it.
Just give gratitude to someone right now.
Yep.
Ooh. Okay, I've said her name a few times. But Adrian is someone who's been a really big champion for me lately. And I wrote her a card last week and I drew a picture of a donkey on it and said, thank you for giving me a swift kick. Best friends need. And so I'm appreciative to have people like her in my life that tell me like, get it together. You're better than this. You can do it. So thanks, Adrian.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What is the first word that popped in your head when you met Dima?
First word that popped into my head when I met Dima. I think it's empowered. In that first interaction, I felt like I could say yes to anything, and then I literally did.
Oh yeah. That is so true. I love it.
So glad you did.
I am too.
And the last.
Yeah,
go ahead.
What's the first word you got in your head when you met Rob an hour ago?
Okay, and broadcast.
No, she's gonna answer.
I don't know if it was a word, but my first thought was like, I feel like I need to Google and see what the beard looked like.
Oh.
Go to prior.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
Curiosity, exploration, Googling.
Why did those sound like NASA projects? Curiosity, exploration.
Yeah, well,
you're talking about my beard. Best answer to what your thought of Rob was at first. Best answer.
You are taking your beardscaping to astronomical levels.
Oh!
Look at that.
There we go.
Wow, it can't be.
Yeah.
Wow. So Rob, what's your last question to Jessica?
I think I'm done.
You are.
I need to end it there.
That was it. That was the one to end on.
We'll end with his beard. Yeah. Well, Jessica,
question for us. That's my last question.
Do I have any questions? I feel like I snuck some in there despite protocol.
Yeah, it was good.
I know.
Natural.
I love it. You guys are awesome. This was so much fun. I definitely wasn't exceptionally nervous and sweating before this. Not at all.
Aw. You're amazing. Getting all the information you shared and being a wonderful volunteer leader, being such an inspiration and an empowering individual to everybody around you. I love you, my friend. Thank you.
You guys are so awesome. Thanks for having me. This was really fun. I'm looking forward to more chit chats.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you on again. This was awesome. And I understand why Dima was saying you're so amazing. I get it. I mean, it's natural. You're authentic and genuine. We have fun.